Hello and welcome to Whisky Resource. My name is Mark and this is Whisky Review number 13. Unlucky for some? We'll see. Okay, so today it's going to be another single malt. This time we're going to be doing a no age statement single malt. This will be the first no age statement that I've done. So today it's going to be Glen Scotia Double Cask. So Glen Scotia, it comes from the peninsula of Kintyre. In Kintyre, there's the town of Cambeltown that gives the name to the smallest whisky region in Britain and Scotland. There's only 3 distilleries in the Cambeltown region. So you've got Glen Scotia, you've got Kilkerran, and you've got the Springbank. And Springbank have 3 different ranges of whiskies that release. So double cask. What can I tell you about it? Well, it has an average retail price of £35.58, 58 pence from the combination average price of the major retailers. It is non-chill filtered. It says that on the box just there, non-chill filtration. Regarding colour, they don't state anything about colour, which is disappointing. I do like my Cambeltown whiskies and I do like Glen Scotia, but I am disappointed to see that they don't mention the colour. It's got E150 in it or not. It's bottled at 46% ABV, which is really good. So, taking those factors into consideration, it does get a average or value score of 93.55, so 93.5 out of 100 for value. Which is pretty impressive given it is a non-age statement whisky. What helps it along there is its ABV at 46% and the fact it is non-chill filtered. If that was sitting at a 40% ABV and if it was chill filtered, you'd be looking at the low 80s. So that is a really good score there for Glen Scotia Double Cask. What makes a double cask? Well, it's been the various barrels were selected and then they were first finished in American oak barrels, and then after that they were then finished in Pedro Ximénez sherry barrels. So it's essentially it's a American oak bourbon maybe. I don't think they actually say, yes they do say it's first filled bourbon barrels and then finished in Pedro Ximénez sherry casks. So it's a sherry finished whiskey. They don't say, or can't find out how long they spend in each of the 2 casks, but being a non-age statement whisky, don't know. Glen Scotia's been going on since 1832. Okay, so let's see what it's all about. So you can see from the bottle that is about halfway down the bottle. I've had this bottle, I'm trying to think now, probably 6 months, 6 or 7 months maybe. I picked it up in clearance from Marks and Spencer's. I paid less for it than the average retail price when Marks and Spencer's were selling it. I do like their bottles, I do like their labels. They're quite simple and clean. They all follow the same general style, except some of the special release bottles I've got. Cambeltown Festival Edition, the rum from 2019, it has this embossed bit at the top of the bottle. I think it's actually that little shape there is embossed at the top. So let's go straight on at the nose and the tasting. Salty. I'm getting that maritime influence, which is very much the Cambeltown style. It's fruity, it's salty. There's that peat note is just creeping through. I am getting the sherry. The sherry finish seems to have had a greater impact at the end there. bit of oak, in fact quite a bit of oak. Some vanilla. Definitely some spice, but that could be the oak. It doesn't seem too hot from the alcohol. At 46% ABV, I would have thought, being a young whiskey, it would be burning the hairs off my nose, but it doesn't seem to want to do that. But as you get used to nosing whiskies, you do get used to letting the alcohol pass straight through. But that distinct maritime sea spray salt, very noticeable there on the palate. It starts with saltiness, then comes the spiciness, a tiny bit of peat, and then you're getting fruit, lovely vanilla fruit, sweet vanilla fruit, a bit of honey, more of that salt. You get burn starting to tingle on your tongue, fizzing a bit. It's kind of, it's not a lemon sherbet, but you're getting that kind of a sherbet fizz bubbling around your tongue. But overwhelmingly, you're getting that distinct Cambeltown sea salt and fruit. A bit of oak there on the finish. It starts to move into quite a bitter, drying oakiness. That bitter dry kind of seems to me to be a signature of bourbon finished barrels, like really oaky. Bourbons tend to have it, which would make sense with this particular whiskey. It's hard to say when you drink this particular whiskey, because it's not too sherry heavied. You're getting those rich fruit notes from the sherry influence, but they're not. It's not a sherry bomb, and we'll come on to sherry bombs in later reviews. But it's not a sherry bomb. It's not sherry intense, but it's got that little bit of peat and saltiness going on. That salt makes your mouth a bit dry. It is a very enjoyable whiskey. That much is true. But you wouldn't necessarily drink it as a first whiskey, because it's quite in your face, and it's whilst it's not as intense as an Islay, it's not as in peat intense on the flavours. It doesn't destroy your palate in that sense. It's not subtle. And you'd probably want to start with something which isn't in your face, isn't as strong. So maybe you'd pitch this somewhere in the middle. If you had a plan as to what you're going to be drinking on an evening for whiskey tastings, you'd probably pitch this one somewhere in the middle. If you want to do 7 whiskies, let's say, pitch this about 4th or 5th in the lineup, because it's going to hang itself. It's going to hold its own against some earlier whiskies. But if you're finishing on Islas, you want to have this first. But of course, it's always a good idea to rinse your palate out with something neutral, maybe a water, something along those lines. I'll pop a tiny bit of water in. It is 46, so I'll probably put a couple of drops in there. That sea salt is just, that sea salt, that maritimeness is just there in your face. And that fruitiness of probably the sherry cask influence. Getting more fruitiness through now. It's still salty. It probably has picked the saltiness up a bit more, but it is fruitier. The peat, it's not massively noticeable, the peat. It is there, but it doesn't necessarily jump straight out at you. It's a very enjoyable whiskey, very enjoyable. So it's got a 93.5 as its value score out of 100. So in terms of overall score, I'd probably say it's an 86. It's good. It's very good. It's not quite as good as the Cambeltown 10-year-old that I reviewed. If this carried an age statement, maybe it would give us a bit more information to go on with a non-age statement. So I think 86 is a good healthy score for it. Very well deserved. There it is.